In today's webinar, we will have a glance into data science and data analytics, along with the business and technology drivers, trends, key businesses, and use cases. We will look into benefits and barriers, plus how these affect user planning and tool choices. We will also be talking about current trends in data analytics and business intelligence, as well as the career opportunities in the same industry. Now, a little bit about Vinay sir. Vinay sir's area of expertise include financial analysis, business analytics, and data science. He has mastered tools like Advanced Microsoft Excel, VBA, Python, Power BI, and R. Vinay has extensive industry experience. He's currently working at Automation AI as a CBO. He has advanced statistics certification from in Indian Institute of Statistics, and he has done his MBA from Indian Institute of Management, Shillong. He's also a very distinguished faculty at Intelligent Academy. So I give all the control to Vinay sir. You can take it ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Rutuja. I'll be taking forward from here. I would like to start today's session with a quote from the Edward Deming. Edward Deming is the person who invented the Six Sigma and all the quality tools in Japan, and he is very renowned uh, quality assurance person in the world. We have a quality prize for all the companies in the world. That prize is named after Edward Deming and his efforts in the sector of quality assurance. So this great thinker once said that it's not enough to do your best. You must know what to do and then do your best. So the direction that he is talking is very important in any career. Most of the time when I see people around me, they jump into various fields of data analytics and they try to explore it from a certain perspective or certain view side. They try to explore entire data analytics field. But if we have a good direction and have a clear understanding of what data analytics is, what is business analytics about, then we will be able to give more justice to our efforts and we will be able to save our lot of time. So today I will be talking about various points. Let's start with the few things that we do wrong when we start in the areas of data analytics or business analytics. So in in the beginning, what we do is we try to spend too much time on theory. We try to understand what is regression, what is classification, what is clustering, without knowing when to apply it or where to apply it. So just knowing the theory of entire area of data analytics is not enough. We need to know where to apply it, when to apply it, and how these algorithms were developed over time and what are the purposes for it. Second thing is we try to learn many languages. We try to learn R, we try to learn Python. There are many people who say try Python, Python ka bada scope hai. This is the common slang that we use, Python ka bada scope hai. But without understanding what Python does or R does or what Minitab does or what SPSS does, jumping right into coding is very harmful to us. We spend a lot of time learning about algorithms, learning about syntaxes, and one fine day we find out that this language is not required at all. Then we try to jump to next language. I will request all the participants to mute their audios and videos also. So Rutuja, can you meet all the participants and can you remove a few malicious accounts from the participant list because people are trying to draw some lines on the screen.
We are working on it, Vinay.
Okay, okay. Yeah. So another thing that I wish to tell you is jumping into advanced topic like deep learning or neural network or advanced AI without having a strong foundation of all the skills which constitute this deep learning or neural network things, directly jumping into this just for the sake of having a cool sounding name in your resume is not really helpful to us. Another thing, the domain knowledge. If we have a good amount of domain knowledge in a particular area along with data science knowledge is a very good combination to have. The last point that I wish to tell you is the visualization skills. The business people don't wish to know what is in background. They just wish to know the final solution. So to communicate that final solution to them and to prescribe some actions to them, we have to have a good visualization skill. So few visualization tools like Power BI or dashboard in Python or even Excel dashboards, these are really good tool to communicate your entire data solution to them. So after doing all these mistakes, we as I said, we don't understand the entire spectrum of this data science. So today I will try to clear this confusion to a extent. People, when they say I want to do a career in machine learning, or I want to do a career in AI or deep learning or any new areas, they must understand what is deep learning, machine learning or artificial intelligence first. So what happens is, as the image says, the artificial intelligence is a bigger picture, including all the areas of data. There are 5 types of data, as I always say. One is tabular data, another one is image data, third one is video data, fourth one is text data, and fifth one is audio data. So artificial intelligence, in a sense, have a spectrum for all these areas of data analytics. Then we go to machine learning. In machine learning, uh, we try to participants, please mute your audios so we won't create disturbance here. Yeah. In artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. So what happens is deep learning. In deep learning, we have multiple layers within one solution. So when we go for a solution, we have multiple layers. That's why we call it as a deep learning. Or if there is no layer, there is a straightforward formula, we call it as a shallow learning. So that shallow learning and various statistical methods fall under machine learning category. So if in machine learning category, we have various statistical methods where we can get straightforward answers by various algorithms like regression, classification, clustering. All these algorithms fall under machine learning category. If we apply this multiple levels of algorithms together, or one layer multiple times, then we call it as a deep learning. In artificial intelligence includes both of these things. Also, it includes various methods that are not required in deep learning or machine learning algorithms. So hence, artificial intelligence is a whole, machine learning is a subset of it, and deep learning is another subset of it. Then comes business analytics or data science or business intelligence, data analytics. These terms we use very commonly and as a synonyms, but there is a subtle difference into all these areas. So let's say you have very good programming skills like Java, HTML, Angular, and all, and you have a bit of business knowledge, very small amount of business knowledge. You can be a good software developer. You just have to understand a problem statement and deliver a solution to it. When you have statistics in combination with programming skills like Python or R and all, you can be a good machine learning engineer. When you have business knowledge and statistical knowledge, you can be a good business analyst. Why I'm saying this? In business analytics, you can achieve your goals without knowing the programming language because there are various tools like Minitab, Power BI, SPSS. These tools help you to reach your goal without doing any programming. So in business analytics, we need not to have all the programming knowledge of Python or R. But if you have a bit of programming knowledge plus statistical knowledge and business knowledge, then you can be a really good data scientist. So this is what the spectrum of this area is. So moving to the next level, we'll discuss about how these methods have evolved over the generations. So in machine learning, usually they say there are 3 generations. First generation was just a rule-based thing, where let's say I will take an example. We have various Twitter accounts, we want to identify how many of these tweets are talking about Tata Motors Limited. So let's say I gather all the tweets from Twitter handles, and I want to analyze now. But there is a problem. If I just go for Tata name, I can get a person also whose name might be JRD Tata, Ratan Tata, or any other person belonging to that family, or I will get a vehicle name also, Tata Sumo, Tata Indica, Tata Safari. Likewise, these names will pop up. So how to identify this? Then we will give a classification. Let's say if there is a name Tata Indica, then it is a car. If it says Tata Ratan, Tata Indica. If I say that Tata Indica is one rule to classify a car, then Indica Tata, this might be another rule. So these rules were very rigid in first generation. Ratan Tata is, if I classify it as a one rule, where we can say this is a person, then Tata Ratan will be another rule. So I have to add lot of rules to guide my machine learning algorithm. But in second generation, if I just say Ratan Tata or Tata Ratan, it will automatically say that it is a this sentence is talking about a person. Even if you have a big sentence where we say Ratan is a good person belonging to Tata family. So Ratan and Tata, there are a lot of words in between the sentence. Still, the machine learning algorithm will identify that sentence as a sentence belonging to one person. The sequence was not having any relevance in here. So the rules, the number of rules that we needed to create reduced significantly. Then third generation came where we have deep learning or hierarchy based algorithm. So what happens here is it will learn from one sentence and it will apply that sentence knowledge to another sentence. Let's say there are two sentences where there is no reference to it. One sentence is Tata is a good human being, and second sentence is Ratan is a good. These four words is good human being. This sentence will belong to one particular person category. So this sentence will be classified as a person, a sentence belonging to a person. So in third generation, there was learning between the two sentences also. Second generation, there was sequence was of no use. And first generation, it was purely based on rules that we define. If some sentence come outside these rules, it will not be able to identify it. Identify it. So in machine learning, these all sequences were developed, and it's still in development phase. It will fourth generation will come with more knowledge. So unless we understand this, how this evolution happened, we'll not be able to get a good direction and how to apply our learnings there. In analytics, there are four different types. In analytics, there are four different types. First is descriptive analytics. Another is diagnostic analytics. Then comes predictive analytics, and then comes prescriptive analytics. So this sequence is very important. So in descriptive analytics, whatever happened in past, we just represent that in a visual format or in a format of charts, like in Excel dashboard and Power BI dashboards. What we do, it's a descriptive analytics. There we just give a hindsight of whatever happened in past. Let's say last month we have a sales dashboard, so we represent whatever sales happened in last month. Let's say in last 6 months, sales have gone down significantly for all the companies. So when we go into deep, we will find out a reason for it. When we find out a reason that there is a corona outbreak or a pandemic there, so that reasoning falls under diagnostic analytics. So whatever reasoning we give for each event, let's say in Diwali there is a high jump in sales, or for Flipkart Big Billion Day there is a high jump in the sales. So that reasoning behind the descriptive analytics, we call it as a diagnostic analytics. In real life, we want to do a lot of predictions for future. Let's say we want to know what will be my sales after 3 months, or for next 3 months what will be my sales, so I can do inventory planning or transportation planning for it. So that kind of analytics is called as predictive analytics. We do all the machine learning algorithms fall under the next two categories: predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics. Let's say I want to predict my sales, I can do time series analysis. predict the next 3 months worth of sales for it. I can do regression analysis for various. Let's say uh, I want to know the reasons behind my climate change. So I can get all the parameters affecting the climate change and the actual climate data. I can predict what happens based on these parameters and which parameter is impacting how much on my climate change. Such kind of things will fall under machine learning category. Then we can predict what will be the climate for next 6 months or next 3 months. That kind of thing where we predict future and we answer this question what will happen about in future. That all criteria falls under predictive analytics. And here machine learning tools comes very handy for us. Then let's say any sales manager gets a target of increasing his sale by 40%. But today his sales is growing at only 10% rate and you have to achieve 40% growth rate. How can you do it? So when we do predictive analytics, we will find out what are the reasons behind my sales. So let's say my cost and prices are having very significant impact on my sales, then I can decide what to prescribe to one particular customer. Let's say I'm a cost manager or I'm a pricing manager or sales manager for Flipkart, where we have lakhs and lakhs of customers. So how Flipkart or Amazon gives a discount right now is they have a common discount for everyone. But when they suggest you something, some product or some particular marketing happens on your Facebook or your YouTube account, that's all falls under prescriptive analytics. So that machine learning algorithm prescribes a certain kind of products to you, and it shows ads only pertaining to that particular model to you because you have shown some interest into those products. Such kind of marketing campaigns or such kind of prescriptions are purely based upon various machine learning algorithms where they identify you, they categorize you, they identify your behavior pattern and all, and then they suggest you something. That entire spectrum falls under prescriptive analytics. So most of us who are working in various organizations, we work in when we do our reporting and all, we start with Excel. We do our first descriptive analytics. But trust me, even if you are an engineer or even if you are working in a business side, we have to do reporting. But if we add a flavor of diagnostic analytics, predictive analytics, and prescriptive analytics in our reporting, it will help us really well in growing into our profession. So, any profession combined with data science knowledge will help us boosting in your career. This entire spectrum is really important. Uh, Once we understand what are the types of analytics, we will go to data analytics in particular. For data analytics, there are various steps in understanding a data analytics problem and delivering a solution to it. So first stage is problem understanding. We have to understand our problem. Once we understand our problem, we have to decide which kind of algorithm will suit to it. If we don't know number of algorithms and how they are working, what is the guiding principle for all those algorithms, we will not be able to connect our problem. We will not be able to write it down in a sense of machine learning or data science perspective. We will not be able to deliver a solution to it. So understanding this life cycle is very important. First thing is problem understanding. So once we understand the problem, we go ahead, we acquire the data. Data acquisition we can do in various ways. We Various organizations have their internal data tools. From there, we can acquire our data. There are some external data sources also from where we can acquire data. Let's say we want to see the correlation between corona and a person's age. So from government website, we can get corona data and what are the people those who are affected. We can get that such kind of data from WHO website or government website. So once we do data acquisition, and our problem statement is understanding correlation between corona and the age. So that problem understanding, then comes the data acquisition, then comes the data exploration. Let's say we have complete demographic data, age, income group, the gender of person, then area that they live in. Such kind of data is there. We have to explore that data. We have to do the quality verification of that data. If that data contains all the parameters that we wish to use in our model, and how that data, uh, how many males are there, how many females are there. We try to balance our data in a sense that we will try to get good quality of data. So there are few quality parameters also. We need to understand those quality parameters in terms to know if our data that we acquired is good or bad. Then comes the data preparation. Once we are satisfied with our data, we go for data preparation. Sometimes what happens is there are a lot of missing values or few data entry errors are there. Then there is a data imbalance. Let's say we collect the data, and we have 95% data for female gender and only 5% data for male gender. So this data is completely imbalanced. So how to do that imbalance treatment, how to transform our data, these are all techniques we should understand. Once we understand all these techniques, then we can move forward to model development. There is a clear correlation between problem and model development. Once we understand the problem, then we should be able to select one algorithm for it. Once we select an algorithm for it, we have to do certain feature engineering where we make our data suitable for that model. Then once we run all the algorithms available for that particular kind of a model, let's say we do regression, there are multiple algorithms falling under regression. So we have to run all those regressions and then identify which model is having best accuracy. So that model scoring we have to check. Based upon model scoring, we have to finalize our model. Once we finalize our model, we'll here one step ends. So from problem to solution, this half cycle is done. You have a solution now, and it will be purely in a form of a code or in a form of simple output in a coding language, let's say Python or R. It will be simply you will have a model for it. But let's say you want to do version controls. There are many libraries available in R, Python, and various other applications also. We have to do version control. We have to deploy that model. We have to send our model to end user. Let's say we have to integrate it with a mobile app, or we have to create a dashboard out of it, or we have to create an application out of it. That deployment cycle we have to understand. We have to store our model in simple ways. Let's say sometimes the data used for model development is very high, 5 GB, 10 GB. We cannot send this entire data to a mobile application. We have to store that particular model in very small size file, so that storing, that version control, and that model deployment comes, which is a very important step in becoming in understanding the entire spectrum of data science. So most of the people end their journey on model development only. They don't go beyond that. The model management they don't care about. Once they develop a model in R or Python, they feel very happy about it and they leave it there only. But in business world or in real life world, that's not the case. You have to go the next step. Model management is very important. Then there comes a continuous evaluation. Let's say the data keeps on changing every day. We generate petabytes of data every year. So this continuous evaluation becomes very important. Let's say a company is there, a Flipkart, let's continue with the example of Flipkart. Every day a new set of data appends into the old set of data. Every day the data is changing. So anybody who wishes to do a inventory planning or any other planning, or wish to identify what kind of model will suit, you have to keep on redeploying the model, retrain the model, monitor that model. Once, let's say today, one type of regression works really well for me. Tomorrow, when the data changes, that model might not work as equally as it was working in previous days. That continuous evaluation is really very important. And if you do it in the same way that you did in model development, you will end up spending a lot of time in the same model. So you have to automate this process also, continuous evaluation process also. Then there comes the visualization, API integration with various apps or various mobile applications or desktop applications, and the visualization in form of let's say you want to collect data from user. That user data collection, you have to give some forms, and once you get that information, you have to visualize it and show it to your business owners. In that sense, visualization plays really important role. So when you complete all these stages, then your life cycle ends there. So, like most of the people think that only developing a R or Python models will make you a good data scientist. No, that's not the case. It's only the half of the entire spectrum, half of the entire life cycle. So, next stage will be, what are the pain areas in this entire life cycle? So the pain areas are, first thing is the data cleaning, data exploration, data preparation. It takes 80% of your time. Those are very trivial stages, but it will take a lot of time, and you have to have very good understanding of data, how to do the data treatment. Then only your model will perform in accurate sense. Then the next step comes, here you have to have a good understanding of problem, and once you understand the problem, you have to have a good understanding of models and the entire spectrum of models, like regression, classification, clustering, association, time series analysis. If you know all these methods, then only you will be able to identify, if such kind of problems comes, which method to apply. So you need to have a good understanding of data science modeling and statistics. Then comes the third step, continuous evaluation. This is much needed step, guys, because business realities change every day. So if you don't do continuous evaluation of your model will become redundant. Today it's working fine, tomorrow it will not be able to identify your business needs. All the models that were developed in 2019 are useless today because of COVID-19 situation. All the forecasting models, all the predictive models are useless today because business reality have completely changed the view of these models. These models, based on previous data, might have predicted the same amount of performance, or a better, or 10-15% less or more amount of performance. But today the performance is down by more than 50% because of lockdown and all. So these models are useless today. They have to recalibrate their models to suit the new reality. So this step, if you don't understand, then your models will not be relevant in changing times. So example is, people are asking for an example in previous slide. So example, I can take one example. Okay, let's say I want to predict pollution level in Pune city. I want to predict pollution level in Pune city. So pollution level is a number. So if it is a number, then number I want to predict. When I have to predict the numbers, I go for a regression model. So this simple problem statement predict the pollution level in Pune city. So pollution levels are numbers, let's say 180 ppm parts per million. Likewise, we have a pollution level measurement tool. 180, 200, 210. These are hard numbers. So whenever we have a number, we go for a regression model. So first thing is problem understanding. I understood the problem that I want to predict pollution level. Pollution level is in number format. So if it is in number format, I will go for a regression model. So I will now go for data acquisition, data exploration, data preparation. I will get data from meteorology department's website. Then I will treat any missing values. I will treat for data imbalance and all. Then I will go for model development. Now I know that from the problem statement, if it is a hard number, I will apply a regression model. So within regression model, there are 7 8 various regression methods, like linear regression, polynomial regression, simple linear regression, lasso regression, ridge regression. I will run all these algorithms. I will compare their models, their scores, accuracy scores. What is root mean square error for all the models? Wherever the error is less, I will select that model. Once I select that model, I will go for model storing. My model will contain a lot of data. Now, let's say I want to predict it for tomorrow or day after tomorrow based upon number of vehicles running on road or temperature of today. What is the season? Is it a rainy season or summer season? Based upon that, I want to predict what will be the pollution level for today. So what I will do, this regression model gives me a formula, single line formula. I need not to store entire model into anywhere. So I will store this single line formula into one file. That's what we call it as a model storing. One single line formula where we have all the parameters who helps us in predicting the pollution level. That single line formula I will store, and any new data comes in, I will push that data into that one model stored file, and I will predict the pollution level for that day. And I will keep all the versions handy, what library I have used, what versions I have used today. So libraries keep on evolving. Any new day that library changes or a method in that library changes, I will change my model accordingly. And model deployment. Let's say I want to deploy my model in a mobile app. So I will go for developing an API. Then next time today, because of COVID-19, pollution levels have dropped significantly. But once this lockdown is lifted up, more number of vehicles will come on road. They will pollute the entire city. So tomorrow, after 3 or 4 months, I will get new data. That new data, I will retrain my model. Again, I will check all the regression methods: ridge regression, lasso regression, linear regression, polynomial regression. Let's say one linear regression was working very fine today. Tomorrow, there might be a case that ridge regression works better than linear regression. So tomorrow, I will deploy that ridge regression formula, and I will keep on evolving in such a fashion, like in a 3 months frequency, I will check my model. Then visualization. In an app, I will give a visualization. This many amount of vehicles are there on road today. This is the pollution level. I will give a color to it if pollution level exceeds. Okay. All right. So there are few tools like Power BI. We have Excel. We have SQL. We have SPSS, Minitab. Lot of tools are there. So we will see which tool is useful in which type of data analytics. A lot of people ask me this question: should I opt for R, or should I opt for Python, or should I go for any other method? So there are various methods. Today we'll end this confusion: which tool to select and why to select that tool. People tell you blindly that select Python or select R, but they don't understand why to select that particular tool and how useful that tool will be. So today we'll understand. In data acquisition, we have various tools. In big data, we have Hadoop. Lot of tools we have there in big data. In normal organizations, we have SQL-based query tools, or we have flat files like CSV, Excel, and sometimes we have custom tools also. Like in my previous organization, we had a ClickView name tool from where we can import our data. So once I get that data, I can explore that data in Excel or in Power BI, in Python, Minitab, R, SQL. Anywhere, whichever tool I'm comfortable with, I can use that tool to explore that data. Then comes the data preparation methods. Here, Excel falls back because Excel cannot treat data imbalance or missing values on its own. There are no libraries for it in SQL or Excel. We have to give hard-coded formulas for Excel and SQL to read the data. But in other terms, Power BI, Python, Minitab, and R. Then in the next stage, SQL falls out, or Power BI falls out. In model development, Power BI do not have any algorithm to do model development. Then there are three methods: Python, Minitab, and R. In the next step of model management, model file storing, version control, Minitab falls short. In here, only two particular languages, Python and R, works really well. Then version control, we can use GitHub for version control of our model, and Python and R also will give us capability to call a certain amount of certain release of a library. Then model deployment. Here R do not give us very much flexibility into it. But in Python, we can deploy our model in any application. using JSON file or API integration. Python helps us. Next thing is here continuous evaluation. If you want to automate that process, Python and R is the only option. Then visualization and API integration. Visualization, Power BI is really good into it. Python we have to code. R also we have a library into R, but it's not so good as compared to the Python. So these are the options: Python, Power BI, HTML, front end development, and all. You can do that. API integration, JSON and Python are really good. So in that sense, if you see the entire spectrum, Python will help you in all the stages. All the other tools that we started with, they will fall out. So when you have to select a language, you have to know the reason behind it. What are the pros and cons of that particular language? Unless you understand that, blindly trusting a language and developing your career into it, you will fall short in some places. So Python helps you in entire spectrum. So that's why we chose Python as our tool. So next stage is model development. Like I gave you an example, any business problem can be written down into one single formula. Let's say my pollution level is Y, which is dependent upon number of vehicles, and X2 is number of factories. So my pollution level will depend upon these two parameters. So in a sense, I can write any business problem into one mathematical formula. Then that y that we call it as a dependent variable, because pollution level is dependent upon number of vehicles running on road and number of factories operating today. So y formula, my pollution level, is dependent upon these two parameters, number of vehicles and number of factories. So we call it as a dependent variable. If it is available, we call it as a supervised learning. If then y, if it is a number, like pollution level, it's a number: 180 parts per million, 200 parts per million, 300 parts per million. It's a number. If it is a number, then we have two options: one is time series analysis, another is regression. If it is a categorical, let's say I'm a store manager in a mall and I want to know some person who is walking inside my mall, he is a male, female, or will he buy any item or not. Such kind of category, yes, no, pass, fail, all categories falls under classification methods. Then there are few algorithms where we don't have any y, no dependent variable is there. Like I want to divide entire number of participants that are attending my webinar today into 4 groups. So there is no y. I can randomly go and divide them into 4 groups. But if I want to do based upon their education, their age, if they are working or not, in a sense, if I want to divide them, that in that principle I don't have any guiding or dependent variable y. So when I don't have any dependent variable, it is called as a unsupervised learning. If I want to create a cluster of students, in cluster of all the participants, I go for clustering. Then if I want to know how to create marketing campaigns, like when we go into shopping mall and buy a mobile, at the same time we buy a screen guard also. So that mobile and screen guard have very strong associated results. But guys, is it equal to win against Australia and win against Zimbabwe? Just this simple number of winning percentage does not give us real picture. If a team wins against Australia or South Africa, New Zealand or England, that particular match is very difficult to win. But if we win against Bangladesh or Zimbabwe, that winning percentage will not matter much. So this question arranged into one person's mind. So what he went for is, he found his inspiration in some different game. We all know that chess follows the Elo rating. Vishwanathan Anand and all these Carl Magnus and these guys have 2500 plus points. How these points are calculated? If team A and team B are there, team A is a higher ranking team and team B is a lower ranking team. Let's say team A and team B are there, and team A is having 1600 points and team B is having 1400 points. In this sense, if let's say team A beats team B, they will all both get 10 points. Team A will get 10 points and Team B will lose 10 points. So this is expected result. India beats Bangladesh, it's an expected result. So Indian team will not get much points out of that match. But let's say Bangladesh team beats India team. So Bangladesh team will get 40 points. Okay. Initially we had 1600 points for team A and 1400 points for team B. When Bangladesh beats Indian team, they will get 40 points. But when India beats Bangladesh, India will only get 10 points. In such a scale, this was a good skill that he thought. And when he analyzed the results, he found out that when Ganguly started his captaincy and when he ended his captaincy, he started his captaincy when our test team ranking was 8. And when he ended his captaincy, he gained 128 yellow points for India and our test ranking was 2. But when Dhoni started our team, he got his team from Kumble and our team was already number 1. When Dhoni ended his test captaincy, he have lost 82 points for us. So this question of who is great, Dhoni or Ganguly, ends here because it was objectively decided. So Ganguly is better captain than Dhoni. This was the conclusion from him. So in this sense, when we know a spectrum of methods, like this person knew how to calculate elo rating points, he applied that method in a different game and he found out one particular solution to it which is more acceptable. So winning percentage was a normal way that we used to decide who is a better captain. So in this example, I want to give you one learning that never let go a good method of data analytics. Learn the entire spectrum. Learn whatever methods that you can identify and learn how to apply them in a different dimension. So when you do this, you are a good data analyst or good data scientist. Just knowing how to program or just knowing how to apply a method will not make you a good data scientist. You need to know the entire spectrum. So when you start your career, there are lot of libraries. In Python, you have 1 lakh plus libraries. There are a lot of tools. R, Python, Minitab, SPSS, n number of tools are available there. So what should you focus on? First thing is you have to have a tool upgradation to Python. If you are using Excel or Power BI or any other tool, you have to upgrade that tool to Python if you want to be a complete data scientist with entire spectrum. Then within Python, you need not to focus on all the libraries. Just these 6 libraries will make you a good data scientist. 90% of your problems will be solved within these 6 libraries. That is Pandas, NumPy, sklearn, a priori method. And for visualization, 2 libraries are there. One is Plotly, another one is Dash. If you know these 6 libraries by heart, you will be a really good data scientist. You need not to learn all 1 lakh libraries. Just 6 libraries will give you a lot of edge over your competitors. Then business model deployment, if you know how to create a weight file, how to use a JSON file creation model, how to use pickle library, you will be able to deploy your model to any business person. And it will be really quick model. So if you know this entire spectrum, you will be a good data scientist. Then when we apply for any business or any job, they ask for experience. How to get that experience without having any professional experience? There are few websites. Kaggle is one good website where lot of companies upload their real life problems. You can solve those problems and get good experience for you. And if you have a good Kaggle profile, trust me, you will get any job really easy. Then in road ahead, what you can do is you can install Anaconda and Visual Studio Code in your computer to start with Python learning. And your system must have at least 8 GB of RAM because a lot of models will take a good amount of RAM from you. So 8 GB of RAM, if you have, it's really good. And if you have a graphics card, it's also recommended because when you finish your data science journey and you want to graduate to AI, or computer vision or other types of data, graphics card are really required. So that's it from my side. If you guys have any questions on your part, you can post it in chat. I will answer those.
Hello, Vinay sir. There are a few questions in the chat section. So I'll just so Kshitij has asked, is the life cycle of so though you showed one life cycle. So he has asked, is this life cycle of data analytics and scientists?
Even if you want to be a data analyst and you wish to use that data and analyst position in a business sense also, I also belong to business school category. I'm not a scientist in a sense, but if I have a good way to deploy my model and make it easily available to business people, that's when my model will be accepted by them. If I don't have that entire spectrum of it, people will just say, okay, ये तो code है, हमें read भी नहीं करना आता है. They can't handle that coding and all. So they want a really clean, simple visualization format of tool where they can enter anything. Let's say my sales representative are going out and they wish to know that person, will he be useful for my business or not, what kind of discounts to give him or not. They just have to enter one client id and they will get entire profile of it and what amount of discount shall I offer to him. This entire spectrum, if I don't know, I cannot be a good data analyst and I cannot be a good data scientist also. So even if you want to be a data analyst, just want to use your data skills and give some business solutions to any company, you need to know this entire spectrum. If you don't know this entire spectrum, you will be falling upon again and again upon the Python code that you have written. And each time running a model file will make it less desirable. So you have to have that extra edge, deploy it, automate it, or forget it. So once you do it, model development should be one-time task. You should not touch your model multiple times. Once it is developed, done, you should automate it, deploy it, and you should forget about it. So in this sense, you can move on to the another problem. If you get falling back on that Python code again and again, you will not have time to explore any other opportunity.
Thank you, Vinay sir. Kshitij, I hope this answer your question. If you have any other question, you can of course unmute your mic and ask Vinay sir yourself. If
Yeah,
Hello.
guys, if you want to
Hello.
ask the question, you can unmute your mics.
Hello. Hello,
Hello.
Vinay sir. Hello. Myself, Kshitij.
Yes.
You said about earlier in the life cycle, uh, in data for the data exploration and preparation, companies use Power BI or like AWS and all those applications, those platforms.
Right.
So how can a like beginner, like a fresher, approach the company with who does not have knowledge about the Power BI and AWS?
Okay. First thing, Power BI is really good for visualization. Power BI is a drag and drop application. So whatever visualization you want to do, you just have to drag and drop a few charts and drag and drop the data into it, and you will get a good visualization. Power BI is not difficult at all. If you want to start visualization or business analyst role, you should choose Power BI. Power BI is really good tool. Many people ask, shall I go for Tableau? Tableau is a highly paid software, so many organizations don't go for Tableau or any other application. They stick to Power BI because Windows is already there. Power BI ka subscription is not needed. Power BI is a free tool in one sense. So you start your journey with Power BI if you want to be an analyst, business analyst, and all. And even if you want to be a data scientist, having a good knowledge of Power BI for visualization is okay. If you want to stick to data analyst role or a data scientist role, you can explore Python first, how to handle data, and then you can go for visualization, how to do visualization within Python. So you need not to explore any other tool. Python visualization is very powerful. You can have maps, you can have GPS coordinates into it, you can have whatever amount of data you want, you can have it. And because Python is open source, to business people also and to us also. So within one chart, you can give a lot of information to your colleagues or your companies. So Python data handling, Python data visualization. These two things, if you do, it's more than enough. Like I told you, you need to have a 6 libraries knowledge in Python. If you get those 6 libraries knowledge, you will be suitable for any profile that you wish to apply for. Even be it business analyst, be it a data scientist or data analyst. All these methods, if you have knowledge of these 6 libraries, you will have a good chance or edge over your competitors for that particular thing. In a sense of experience, if you want to gain an experience, go to Kaggle. There are lot of various different problem statements available. Go and try those problem statements. Create your profile there. Once you have a profile on Kaggle, any good manager understands that what Kaggle is. He will hire you if you have a good profile there. And if you have solved a lot of exercises there, people will hire you. So to gain the experience, go to Kaggle. About the tools, choose Python and choose the 6 libraries that I mentioned. That will be sufficient for you.
Okay. So you were saying,
Does it last?
it,
I hope I have
hello.
answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take next question if you don't have any follow-up
Yes,
question. So,
Vinay sir. So Omkar has raised his hand. I think he wants to ask some question. Omkar.
yes, yes. Omkar have asked a question that what is difference between data analytics and data scientist? This difference is very thin line is there. Data analyst is one who do the data analysis to let's say I know Minitab. Minitab is just if I want to explore the data, Minitab is a really good tool. I can explore the data. I can deploy various machine learning models there. I can give you answer one time. So knowing Minitab is more than enough to become a data analyst. There are various statistical tools into it and all. But if you want to be a data scientist, you need to have a one step further knowledge in the application areas like regression, classification, clustering. There in regression you have multiple methods. In classification, let's say I have logistic regression, I have k nearest neighbor classifier. So I need to understand what is the subtle difference between all these methods. If I know the differences between all these methods, then this kind of knowledge will help you in becoming a data scientist. So if you have surface level knowledge of all the methods in data handling, you will be a data analyst. You can use your data, manipulate your data, get your answer and get going. But to become a data scientist, you have to know a little bit further knowledge of all the methods, what are their characteristics, what are the differences between different methods, which method is applied in uh, which scenario. Let's say logistic regression and k nearest neighbor classifier. These are the two classification methods. Logistic regression is a method of classification only, but it only works for two categories. If you have two categories, 0 and 1, then only that method will work. But k nearest neighbor will work in any scenario. So such kind of differences, you know what are the methods and how to apply those methods. In that sense, you will become a data scientist. So data scientist is one step ahead of data analyst. Okay, one question from Sharvari. How to improve your skills on unified modeling language as it is used in product design data analytics. I know about Draw.io, which helps to design UML models efficiently. Are there any more tools used? There are a lot of tools. This is particular unified modeling language. This unified modeling language falls under automated machine learning tools. So in this area, there are a lot of tools. STO.ai is a Bangalore-based company that provides one such tool. we at Automate and AI are also developing a AutoML tool where you just have to enter your data, and at a click of one button, you will get all the data science answers to it. So there are a lot of tools available in market. Google is also developing one AutoML tool. So in few years, this entire process will be automated. As we know in our data science community, data science is currently limited to very few people. It is not democratized yet, like Excel. Excel anyone can use, even a 6th standard person can use Excel. So data science today is limited to very few people who know Python or who know some programming language. In upcoming years, it will become democratized using various AutoML tools. So these AutoML tools will help you in lot of sense. You just have to upload your data, click a button, you will get entire answer to it. So in that sense, it's changing very fast. You can search for AutoML tools and you will get a list of multiple websites that are providing this unified modeling language. Okay. Any other question?
Thank you, Vinay sir. There are a few questions. One has asked, can you tell more about the course? So, can you talk about more our
Yes.
data
Okay.
analytics course here, please?
Yes. Yes. So, guys, we have at Intelligent Academy, we have various lecturers belonging to various areas of expertise. In India, we have 6 different lecturers. We have 2 lecturers from South Korea, 1 lecturer from New Zealand, 6 lecturers from USA, and 1 lecturer from France. All of these guys have areas of expertise in various spectrums of artificial intelligence. You are very good experts in computer vision, you are good experts in data science, then you are a good lecturers about deep learning. So we have various modules for all these areas. Today I will talk about area of data science. In data science, we have a boot camp, 1 month long boot camp, which we conduct in weekends. So in this boot camp, we provide 2 types of courses. One is Python upgradation. So any tool that you use today, we will upgrade your skill set to Python. We'll teach you Python entirely. At the end of this particular module, you will have your functional dashboard in Python. So you'll know how to manipulate data, do all the data frame operations and data visualization, and how to create your dashboard. So this analyst requirement of visualization will be fulfilled in first module. It will last for 4 days. Then second thing is the advanced. Here I will teach along with Bhagwat Chate. He is my co-lecturer. We both conduct this course. Here you will get real life use cases. 5 different use cases you will get. You will have to identify which methods to apply to it. We will teach you entire spectrum of how to apply method to a problem statement. Then we will practically ask you to code for it. And while we are practically doing all these things, we will teach you theory behind it. So in this sense, you will learn supervised, unsupervised machine learning, time series analysis, how to do model performance evaluation, how to deploy that model. This entire course you will learn in advanced course. So batch timing and all, batch timing is, our batch is starting from 1st of August and it's a weekend batch. So every weekend you will have 8-hour course. In that 8-hour course, you will learn about this entire spectrum of Python and machine learning. So if you have any questions, you can ask us, or you can visit our website, which is intelligentacademy.com. We have sent the contact details also. So that's it from my side, guys. Any more questions? We can have a 5 or 10 minute session.
Yeah.
When if somebody doesn't have, hello.
Go ahead.
So yeah, if somebody doesn't have the programming skills knowledge, when for example, in my case, so I've been working from last 14 years and don't have, although I do have, a lot of business knowledge in procurement, telecom, and all these domains, but not the programming language. So my team is responsible for all the Tableau, visualization, ClickView and all. So how about if we need to, to move into this artificial intelligence, machine learning in procurement world? So
Yes.
How can we,
Sir,
build our capability in that aspect?
yes. So what I will recommend to you is, because you have a good amount of professional experience, you need not to learn any programming language in particular sense. You have some people working in various programming languages for you. But what you should understand is, if there is any real life use case, let's say in these use cases, let's say I want to predict a loan defaulters. This is
Mhm.
a use case for banking domain, let's say. So you need to understand, if such kind of problem arises, what machine learning model is applicable there. If you know that much, you can ask your subordinate to program for it and give you the answer. But you should understand the spectrum, how that spectrum works, how this pipeline is developed, how to create
Correct.
a real problem to a machine learning solution. If you know this much, somebody can program it for you. And second thing, what I recommend you is, uh, there is a very big fear of programming language in lot of our minds. But trust me, if you
Mhm.
know what to use within that programming language, it becomes very simple. You can learn Python in 4 days also. But if you have to have
Mhm.
that direction, what to learn in that Python, and also you have to complement your domain knowledge with, you have good understanding of various problems in your domain. But if you know what method of machine learning applies there, if you know that much also, you will get really good answers to your problems. So you can skip programming piece, but you cannot skip this real life understanding and connect between problem and solution. If you understand that way, people can work for you in that domain, but you have to have a good understanding of problems. And in a recommender, I will say, try Python once. If you try it,
Yeah.
you will get really good at it. At the end of 4 or 5 days, you will get really good at it. Because today I conduct one batch in this month. I have people from
Mhm.
commerce background also who have never heard of programming. They have learned and they have a functional dashboard after 4 days. So we take care of that also. So you just have to dedicate your 1 month, which will save you at least 4 years in your career.
Great, Vishnu.
You
Thank you, Vinay.
should-
Thank you
Hi,
so much.
hi Vinay,
Thank you,
this
Vinay,
is
sir.
Vivek. Hi
Hi,
Vinay, this is Vivek.
Hello.
Yeah,
hi Vivek.
yeah, hi. So my question was like I have good knowledge of programming skills and also
Okay.
know a little bit about business, but I'm not aware of statistical part. It
Okay.
is similar to what Kshitij asked, but I have different skills.
Okay.
So what about that?
Okay. So statistics, we have lot of methods. I will give you an example from statistics domain. There are four methods. One is correlation, one is z-test, one is t-test, one is chi-square test. People understand those methods. जब हम stats का book लेके बैठते हैं, सारे methods समझ में आते हैं, but उसका application कहाँ करना है कोई नहीं बताता. Lot of
Right.
statistics that we learn. I was very lucky to learn it from a person who have 45 years in statistics. When I went to Indian Statistical Institute, now there they taught us this approach. Statistics is not about learning the methods. उसका formula क्या है, वो कैसे use करना है. Today, any formula in statistics is just click away. आप एक्सेल में जाओगे तो सारे स्टैटिस्टिकल फॉर्मूलाज का फॉर्मूला बना के रखा हुआ है. जस्ट यू हैव टू पास द डेटा, इट विल गिव यू द आंसर. लर्निंग फॉर्मूला इज नॉट इम्पोर्टेंट. हाउ टू हैंडल योर रियल लाइफ सिचुएशन, उसके लिए क्या स्टैटिस्टिकल टूल चाहिए. इफ यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट मच, देयर आर लॉट ऑफ टूल्स दैट विल टेक केयर ऑफ फॉर्मूला पीस, दैट विल टेक केयर ऑफ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स. So I will give you one example. Let's say I want to predict share price of Reliance and Nifty. There is strong correlation between share price of Reliance and Nifty. In this sense, if I want to know what is impact of one onto another, I will just apply correlation. But let's say I want to know, if there is in a classroom, we have boys, we have girls. So boys and their marks and girls and their marks. What is correlation of gender on the final score? Lot of the times we say कि CBSE में girls ने बहुत अच्छा score किया, CBSE के 10th standard में 12th standard में बहुत अच्छा score किया. This बहुत अच्छा score किया, people don't understand this. We have to give a number against it. So girls versus boys in terms of score, ये करने के लिए एक simple method है chi-square test. So जब तक you get real life connection with the statistics, nobody will understand it. हम statistics कब से सीख रहे हैं? 11th 12th standard में हमें छोटा छोटा उसमें आता है probability कैसे calculate करना. Stats का शुरुआत वहां से होता है. In engineering
Yeah.
also we learn lot of
Sorry
it.
to interrupt. Vinay, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, that was that is like my worry about, because I haven't studied much. You can say it would be like 5% what I have studied statistics. So will it be like just knowing the algorithm and real-time application will help, or deep
Yes,
knowledge
yes.
of statistical algos
Mm.
is required?
No, no. In entire data science way, if you understand what method to use, my teacher he used to say कि आपको ऑटोमोबाइल इंजीनियर बनना है या माइकल शूमरकर बनना है, you have to have that clarity. If you want to explore, you want to become a PhD student, you go deep into statistics. आपको अगर माइकल शूमरकर बनना है तो आपको बस 3 चीजें पता होनी चाहिए: एक्सेलरेटर, ब्रेक, क्लच और स्टीयरिंग. ये 4 चीजें आपको पता है ना, that's more than enough. Likely in statistics is there to help you, not to inhibit you. So if you know when to use what method, that's more than enough. And trust me, there are not lot of methods available, but बहुत थोड़ा सा स्पेक्ट्रम है स्टैट्स का जो रियल लाइफ में यूज होता है. तो वो थोड़ा सा स्पेक्ट्रम भी आप जान लोगे तो इट विल मेक लाइफ वेरी इजी फॉर यू. और स्टैट्स का कोई फॉर्मूला लर्न करने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है.
Got it. Cool.
ओके.
Thank you.
Hello, Vinay sir.
हाँ, हेलो.
Good morning.
I
This is
think you
Dr.
people have
Prajakta
started
Orare.
their videos. I will request them to switch off the video part. I don't know
Hello,
what
can I
is.
ask my question?
हाँ. Tell me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. First of all, your session was very informative. I got information about the types of analytics, and you talked about life cycle and all. Basically, I am a academician, and I teach business analytics to my students. Now, this year,
Okay.
Pune University has introduced this new specialization to MBA, business
Okay.
analytics.
Yes.
So, if I want to tell my students as to how they should pursue their career, if they are interested into business analytics, how should they go
Okay.
about it? Like which course they should take up first, and like that.
Business analytics, there are a lot of methods in business analytics that are not readily available. Let's say customer behavior pattern analysis, loan defaulter prediction analysis. In marketing, in MBA, we have to create various market offerings like discounts and how to combine your products and all. So that knowledge is
Okay.
not straightforwardly available in market,
Okay.
but they should learn it in use cases basis. You should create few use cases, and then you should teach them the theory behind it. So for MBA students, getting to know what is the problem statement, what is the method behind it, and applying it is the really important one. Most of the time, business analytics people, they just focus on teaching the programming language, Python or R or any other language that they feel comfortable with. They just go ahead with this sense कि programming language एक बार सिखा दिया तो students will automatically use it. No, that's not the case. Programming language is only a 10% piece, but our coursework mainly focuses on teaching the programming language. उसके अंदर के सारे methods and all they try to teach us. But we should, instead of focusing on programming language, we should focus on real life applications. Then teach them just an overview of what actually is required in programming language, which are the libraries that will help them in manipulating data, visualizing that data, and machine learning algorithms, how to apply those algorithms using programming language. That should be only 20% piece, and 80% piece should be for a business person. 80% piece should be what is the real life solution, real life problem, and how to apply it, how to apply a solution to it. Even if you skip this programming language in your business school, just give them a Minitab tool. Minitab will answer 90% of your business analytics problem.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the question. Any other question?
Does anybody else have any other questions? Also, can everybody please switch off their videos? It will be really helpful. Mr. Sandeep has raised his hand before. Sandeep, do you have any questions?
Sandeep. Sandeep, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay, it seems like we have answered pretty much all questions. I'll give you another 2
Hello,
minutes.
hello, Vinay sir.
Kshitij.
I want to conclude over your answer. You said about earlier for the fresher or beginner, the practice from the Kaggle, HackerRank, and learning and exploring these all algorithms and all will will get an opportunity for the job.
Okay.
Is this uh, is this all is necessary for the job?
Yes, getting a good experience and real life application of these methods is really important. Just learning about Python and syntaxes in Python or looping in Python, object-oriented programming in Python is not required at all to become a data scientist or data analyst. It's complementary to your knowledge, your domain knowledge, which method to apply when. Then Python is just a tool to help you in that sense. It will just enable you to apply that in real life. अगर Python नहीं भी सीखना है तो you can do pretty much of things in Minitab also. But if you learn it, it's really good. It will enable you for the entire spectrum. But don't just fall into this trap of learning Python in so deep that you will just tangle yourself in Python learning and you will miss all the machine learning part. Machine learning part should be 80%. Python or any programming language should be 20%.
Okay,
Kaggle
but
in that sense.
sir, looking over the current situation, I have tried 2-3 interviews over that, and they mainly focuses on these basics of like programming. What's your concept of uh, problem solving and all these things? They mainly focus on primarily on this, and then they go further in machine learning and Python libraries, pandas and all.
So what happens is for every job in India, we have a lot of competition. So this programming knowledge check or test for programming knowledge is just a way to eliminate a lot of people who are just claiming a lot of big things on their resume and don't have any real life experience into it. So this is
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a method to eliminate a lot of people. So those people who have even good knowledge of programming language uh, or good knowledge of machine learning even will get eliminated in this process. So it's a loss of that recruiting person. It's not a loss of that student. Trust me, if you have good amount of knowledge, good amount of good resume and good profile, nobody will ask you about this silly questions of programming language. So when we have good profile on LinkedIn, when you start uploading your dashboards and all, your Kaggle score, Kaggle profile score, Kaggle ranking, people will directly contact you on LinkedIn, ask you questions about your profile directly. They will not ask you about programming, because Kaggle, getting a Kaggle rank means that you already have all the required skill set for it. So recruiting people know this. They will not ask you silly questions like give a taste of programming and then come. They will not ask you such questions when you have a good Kaggle rank and good LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, so since from the past few months, I was trapped in this and was confused where to go, where to begin, jumping back and forth. That's why this It was stuck in my mind, like what to wait for.
Online courses will directly jump into knowing the Python language, knowing the regression
Mhm.
from by
Mhm.
heart. That's not required actually. We have also experienced all this in my last 3.5 year journey into data science. I have also tried lot of tools, lot of online courses and all. So through experience now I've reached at a path that is optimal to become a data scientist. So if you learn it from an experienced person, it will save you a lot of time. If you dedicate your 1 month or 2 months with a experienced person,
Okay.
it will save at least 2 or 3 years of your career.
All right. All right. So focusing on yourself growth, and that will make
And
opportunity.
job is a
Yeah.
job is
Job.
a what you can say. Job is a side business in the sense if you know all these things, you have your good profile. Job
Mhm.
offers will flow. You need not to apply for anything.
Okay. It will come eventually.
Eventually, it will come. Yes, if you have the
All right.
knowledge, it will come.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for this session, sir. It will clear my all of the doubts.
Thank you, Kshitij.
One,
Vinay sir, there
one
was
more.
another.
One Vivek is
Sorry.
asking. Vivek.
Yeah. Uh, Maybe it might not be like suitable for this session. I'm not very sure. So how does like AI and VR are correlated?
VR is a subset of AI.
Okay.
AI is much bigger than VR. VR is just a in a tree. It's a branch, a small branch. If you
Got it.
consider AI as a tree, VR is a small branch into that tree.
Okay. So if you are aware of like AI, all the stuff, it will be easier to jump to VR as well, right?
Yes, yes, true. If you have a good foundation, now you can jump to data science, you can jump to computer vision, you can jump to any field. But foundation of this methods and real life application अगर पता है तो आप jump कर सकते हो.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Vinay sir, there was one question in the chat. I'll just read it out to you.
Okay.
Aniruddha has asked, what do companies prefer, data analyst or data scientist? And what's the difference in the job profile?
Companies mostly prefer data analysts. Companies or recruiters are themselves very confused people. They label anything as a data analyst. Even if you are a data peon in a company, they will give you a designation of data scientist. Even if you are creating reports on a daily basis, which are only a descriptive piece of entire analytics process, they will call you as a data scientist just to massage your ego. Lot of companies are confused themselves what to call it, how to differentiate it. So don't go by the things. Data analyst is the in a sense is a automobile driver or a Michael Schumacher. He knows all the methods, he uses them for his benefit, he gets a data and he delivers a solution. Data scientist in a sense is I will give you a simple example in real life. One of a client, I gave him a solution which was 99% accurate, but because I knew that the solution that I gave to him contained few ifs and buts. So unless you are a data scientist, you will be very happy with your accuracy number. But accuracy number alone is not making any sense. Future, if you want to, if somebody uses your model, he will definitely get a wrong answer because he is not following those ifs and buts of that particular model, the constraints of that particular model. The data analyst, he can deliver a solution, but a data scientist will understand why that solution was created, how that solution was created, and where to apply it, what are the conditions for that application. So on a surface level, you can become a data scientist, data analyst very quick. But to become a data scientist in a sense, you need to understand the spectrum. Many managers or many business people are fooled by accuracy numbers. They just look for accuracy number, but उसकी conditions नहीं पता होते उन्हें. So data analyst को भी बस पता है कि accuracy number कैसे लेके आना है. You don't know why that accuracy number actually came into existence. कई बार ऐसा होता है, we have very imbalanced data, still we get a answer, but that answer in real life, it's not reflecting into real life. Real life की conditions नहीं पता होते हैं, बस एक मॉडल डेवलप कर दिया, डिप्लॉय कर दिया. That's what a data analyst does. Lot of companies are happy with that. उनको भी खुद को भी नहीं पता कि क्या करना है. But if you become a data scientist and keep that approach, your scenarios, your answers, your models will make more sense. I hope I answered your question.
Thank
Hello,
you,
sir.
Vinay.
हाँ Niruddha.
I'm Anil Wagmare. Thanks for addressing my question. Actually, I have a different question also. See,
Okay.
right now I have done with my data science course and all, but the only
Okay.
confusion is how to start my career. I mean, many times I have seen other LinkedIn profiles or interviews. They ask for 2 to 3 year experience for data scientist post and all. So, and data analyst also. So, from where do I start as a data engineer, as a data analyst? So, how do I start my?
So you start with Kaggle profile building. If you have a Kaggle profile where your rank is within first 100 people, nobody will ask you about your experience.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? We are at the end of our webinar. Okay. Seems like we are at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much, Vinay sir. It was really a very insightful webinar. Thank you everybody for joining. Just to remind you again, we will be giving the certification of participation and the summary of this webinar. So please do fill out the Google form that we've put up in the chat section, and we will send you the certification within a week. And with this, we conclude today's webinar. Again, I thank you, the Centelligent Academy team, and all the attendees that attended today. If anybody has any questions, they can always reach out to us on the WhatsApp number or the email ID, that is info@centelligentacademy.com. For any other information, you can always visit our website. And on the website, we have mentioned all our contact details, so you can reach out to us there too. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Just so people know, we are running a series of AI and data analytics webinars. This was our first webinar in the series, and the next webinar is coming on 27th. So those details are also in the on the website. So please look for it. Ashwini has asked about the fees. Sir, do you want to answer this one?
We can connect to her, get her details. We will connect to her.
All right.
Ashwini, please share your details.
Send
We'll
you
connect to her.
the email with all the details. Thank you so much. I will end the webinar now. Thank you, everybody.